Hello there and Happy New Year, Happy 2022. We're a little bit of a way into 22 at the moment. I took a month off, so I've taken a break from videos and this is my first one of the new year. And it's new year, new everything. I have a new background because I am working for a new law firm. I have new challenges, new excitement ahead, working with new and exciting people all over the world about all things technology, data, telecoms and everything in between. So that's very exciting. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll know where I am and you'll know how to get in touch. But excitement awaits. I am very enthusiastic about what's happening in the world of technology and I think 2022 will be a good year. Or will it be 2022, the sequel or the revenge? We are currently in Hong Kong in a curfew situation due to an outbreak of COVID, which just seems a bit like old hat these days. So we will see. I just hope that they fix it before my birthday. Although that said, if they don't fix it by my birthday, I have a very cool birthday present that I can look forward to that I bought myself. More on that perhaps later on. Incidentally, if you're wondering what I got for Christmas, I bought myself a new gaming chair. How exciting is that? I clearly may be quite old, however I have the brain and the excitement factor of someone who is still in their teens. Now, this is a video where there isn't much to talk about because there hasn't been that much news in the world of tech, only really one exciting thing to be perfectly honest. So instead I wanted to focus on the responses that some of you gave to my predictions video. Now you may remember the last video I did at the end of 2021, just at the beginning of December, was my predictions for this year. And I have to admit, a lot of them were a bit gloomy. I tried to be optimistic, but I thought, I think there might be a bit of a tech war continuing. We may find that the technology market is not as exciting as it used to be in terms of people fighting over things. But it seems that I was not pessimistic enough. I had lots of responses, and most of them, to be perfectly blunt, suggested that things are going to get very dicey in terms of the technology world as we go through this new year. Now, the main thing we saw that there would be a lot more tit for tat in terms of Western Chinese, Western Eastern, I suppose, but Western Chinese tech relations. And we saw a lot of that in the last few years anyway, let's be perfectly honest. But I suppose what we've seen, certainly in most recent times, is that whereas the US took a dim view of Chinese technology, certainly during the Trump administration, now China's gone the other way. So, the Chinese Cyberspace Authority released their rules, essentially their rules for data security reviews under the new data laws that came into force in China last year. That's the Data Security Law and the Personal Information Protection Law. And a data security review that any entity that is essentially a network operator or a critical information infrastructure operator, now I would say it will probably be expanded to others, has to conduct a data security review for various reasons. For example, if they have too much data, like more than a certain number of records, or they are relevant in some way to national security, and it seems like everything these days is. Now, those rules require things like you have to disclose to the authority any foreign investment into your organization, your use of foreign technology, how that may hamper national security, and also in terms of if you're doing an IPO, the details of the IPO you're doing. Think what happened to DiDi's IPO. Think what has happened to technology companies in general, when they've tried to IPO outside of China. So I'm seeing there that China's really doing what the US was doing not that long ago. It's very much taking the view that actually, if you're going to start making life difficult for our tech companies, we will do the same for you. I assume there are lots of technology companies thinking, oh, what does the future hold? It looks like it's going to be a bit of a rocky road to navigate. And that's part, I think, someone commented and said there's such a thing as the splinternet, where we're seeing the internet, the technology market in different jurisdictions becoming more splintered off and more very, very different in different jurisdictions. And that we will see not just a big difference between the Chinese market and the Western market, we'll see breakups in more markets around the world. So a different technology market, for example, on the African continent, which may be heavily influenced by Chinese investment. Perhaps a different one in Europe, who knows? It's going to be an interesting time, and I think we'll find that this whole idea of the global internet being all one happy, brilliant place where there are no trolls and everyone speaks about nice things, but the same technology is used, a lot of you seem to think that won't be the case. A lot of you also suggested that cybersecurity would be big for 2022, which I very much agreed with. But one of the interesting suggestions is that actually data security and sharing of data would become part of trade negotiations. So you all know when people get into trade negotiations, they do a trade deal, they will have rules about tariffs on products, what can be imported, what can be exported, how much they're going to pay for things. But it was suggested that actually then you will have rules on how you handle the other party's data, what protection that data gets, maybe even some sort of amnesty on any surveillance or cybersecurity issues involving the two jurisdictions. I thought this was absolutely fascinating, and I can see it becoming more of a thing, because we know certainly the year of 2021 was the year of the data breach, as was 2020, as was 2019. Every year we have an increase in the number of attacks. 2022 will be no different, but it may be that states start talking to themselves specifically in terms of what they mean and how they want their security to be protected. So we will see. I think it's a bit like the war games thing I was talking about in my prediction video. It seems a bit more, maybe it's a bit more optimistic that the states will actually come to an agreement. We do see it in terms of some cooperation agreements between jurisdictions. We'll wait to see if that becomes more of a global thing. Now, the last thing that was predicted by many people was a crackdown on big tech, a pushback. And some of you suggest that big tech deserves it. Now, I actually don't agree. I know that Facebook, certainly Facebook seems to get the they all get tarred with the same brush, but there's certainly a lot more scrutiny on the impact that big technology is having on our day-to-day lives. And when I had time off over the Christmas break, the amount of articles that you could read in the mainstream press saying about how really it was social media that were pushing it, but not just social media, is harming the way that we operate, the way that we work, ruining our attention spans, essentially making the world a worse place, much as the way that people complained about rock and roll and television and all those other things back in the day. But there does seem to be more of a suggestion that something needs to be done. However, although a lot of you said that they do think they will see state interventions in the West, I don't agree. I do think that big technology is making too much money and is too important at the moment for essentially that many nation states to really get involved trying to stop its influence. We may see it in smaller jurisdictions, but I don't think we'll see it in the big Western jurisdictions. However, contrast that with what's happening in China. Last year we saw the war on tech from China, a big crackdown on technology companies, which was ostensibly on the basis they hold too much data and that data could fall into the wrong hands. It was national security reasons. That will continue. Certainly the new cybersecurity review rules that have been passed do aid that. They control foreign investment. But it was suggested now there may be new rules coming in China that means that any application, any technology that could influence opinion may become regulated or indeed banned if it's doing the wrong thing. And that is interesting. I know part of that probably comes from the fact there is more censorship in China than there is in the rest of the world. But think about how in the West there have been various, essentially, you can call them fake news sites if you want, but people who've tried to sway public opinion one way or another using either misguiding facts or whatever you want to call it. You may think they're accurate facts, but on what side they put the coin on. And there was talk of trying to bring those under control, but generally big tech has done nothing. They've done bits. Facebook has tried. I don't think it's necessarily tried very hard. But now I think China is taking a view that anything that is not within the state's interest will essentially be controlled completely. And I think we'll see a tighter grip. So I think that may be a model that other jurisdictions see would be the way forward. And I do think China's trying to export its technology market. And I think maybe you think that way too when you're talking about how big tech could be controlled and the Chinese way is the way to do it. But we'll see. I don't know. I just do think that I talk a lot about things like data sovereignty. I think we will have the splinternet, the different internets, the different technology markets widely different, not just in terms of the data you can access, but the products that you're using, the brands you are dealing with, the technology in general you're using. And we'll find it much more difficult to go global if you're a technology provider. But some others suggested that we'll see more interesting innovation, the likes of which we have never seen before and can never predict, some groundbreaking developments in terms of tech, and that there will be a fight by big technology companies to scoop them up. I agree with that, but I am quite excited about the technology we'll see, and I do think it's going to be an exciting year. So that's it for now. I'm going to come back probably in a week's time with a more traditional video, because I've been asked to talk about smart contracts and explain how they work, and why they're interesting, and perhaps how they should take over, but they haven't yet. But in the meantime, biggest technology innovation that I saw over Christmas was, and I promised I'd talk about this because I bought myself one, it's for my birthday really, a Starship Enterprise made from Playmobil. And I was always more of a Lego man than a Playmobil man, but it uses AR, augmented reality, and Bluetooth to essentially mimic the Enterprise bridge. It makes noises, it can produce bits from the show. It's just really cool. I think it's for ages that could be a little younger than the one I am. But hey, I've always been a big kid, and I probably always will be as long as technology or indeed music is involved. But anyway, hopefully see you soon, either with this cool background, or if the curfew situation and lockdown gets worse in Hong Kong, you may find the records are back because I'm at home. But hope you are all staying safe, and all the best for a prosperous 2022. I'm hoping, despite all of the chaos in the world, that it will be a very good year. And let's face it, most years in terms of technology and the excitement about new tech and how it works, it usually is a good year, even if it's a bit of a fraught one. But stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.